And welcome back, everybody. I'm Steve Washer, and with me today is Dr. Gary Epler, a professor at Harvard Medical School and a world-renowned physician in his own right. But I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about that. And the reason that we're talking today is that Dr. Epler has made his contribution to the well of human knowledge in the area of something that is very dear to my heart, and that is the expression of truth. And when I say truth, I don't mean, this fact over this fact or, whatever. But, down through the ages, scientists and philosophers have tried to confront the idea of truth from largely opposite spectrums. And it's rare when one of us crosses over. And that's why I'm so excited today to bring you Gary. Hi, Gary. It's so great to have you with us.
Oh, Steve, that's fantastic. We get to talk about truth today. It'll be good.
Yeah, and we're also going to talk about how it applies to, productivity and innovation and sales and all that kind of good stuff, because that is a very, that's an application that we don't hear enough about when we talk about these sort of high-level concepts. So if you could just maybe start by telling us where this how this kind of happened with you, because you are a scientist.
Sure. It happened way back. I was in medical school, and I discovered a parasite. It was a lung fluke down in South American jungles. And then I went on to discover a disease. It was a lung disease, and it really is very helpful to discover that, because I got to improve the lives of people with that disease. And then I wanted to go on. I wanted to discover something that could help people's lives, millions of people. And I started my research and teaching and studying all over the world. And along the line, I discovered who I was. And that was a phenomenal feeling. It was great. It's liberation. It's freedom. You don't have to compare yourself to anyone. You don't have to blame anyone, no criticism. It's just you, and it's really a wonderful feeling. And I was given a seminar, and somebody said, well, how do you do this? How do I do? I said, I don't know. This was a few years ago. I want to find out. And some new brain science came along, Steve, that solved the problem. And the brain science was from fMRI, which means functional MRIs. It's just a standard MRI. Aristotle and Socrates didn't have this. And it shows what part of the brain people are thinking from. If they're thinking, if they're trying to make decisions, it comes from the prefrontal lobe. If they're angry, it comes from the anger center, the amygdala. And if they're happy, it's the accumbens and so forth. And this particular study, they put a group of people, asked a group of people to keep the red light off. And the way you keep the red light off, don't think about yourself. Simple.
Keep the red light off.
Yes, keep the red light off.
Oh, you mean in the
red light's going to go on if you think about yourself. All right?
Okay.
So you got the study?
Got it.
Simple. Just go into the fMRI, hang out, just don't think about yourself. You think about yourself, that red light's going to go on, you need to turn it off. All right? So they went in there, and everything was great, and they started saying, they started sort of feeling sorry for themselves. See, everybody else is doing so well. I'm not doing well, and this and so forth. And the red light goes on, sort of the pity party kind of thing, and they could turn it off. And then they start criticism, self-criticism. They just sort of, I made a mistake. I'm going to lose this. And the story builds the second word and the third and the fourth and the story, and the red light again goes on. This sort of self-criticism, and they learn to turn it off. And the third thing, they found themselves really kind of evil thinking. They're trying to figure out how to get ahead, and they can get ahead if they can do this to that person. Kind of the Machiavellian kind of behavior of.
Was this all from the same part of the brain, the same red light?
Yeah, it's exactly the same part of the brain. And this is a new part of the brain within a few months to years. This is all new. and it's a big part of the brain.
What's it
And
called?
it's called the posterior cingulate cortex, the PCC, and we'll call it cingulate for short.
Okay,
The
everybody,
other
get
thing we
that.
do,
You're hearing it here, maybe for the first time.
maybe for the first time, it's called the cingulate, and we call it cingulate thinking. Even make it simpler. That's cingulate thinking. When anybody is thinking about themselves, that's cingulate thinking.
Okay.
And it's primitive brain. It's the reptilian, the crocodile brain. It's great for instinctive actions to save your life, but you don't need it any other time because it's not going to help you. And the reason is they looked at these people that learned how to keep that light off 3 months later. They were healthier. Steve, they were not only healthier, they were more productive. They enjoyed life more. They were happier. And the best part, they were better citizens. They helped people. They helped each other. It's fantastic how just getting out of that kind of thinking did all of that. And so that so now I have the answer. Now I can answer that question of who I am or who you are. And it's 7 words. Know who you are, 4 words, moment by moment. That's the discovery, moment by moment.
That's really a shocking discovery coming from a scientist, because most people, not just scientists, but most everyone thinks that truth comes from somewhere out there. The truth is out there. But actually, all the truth teachers teach the same thing, and that is the truth is in us as long as we allow ourselves to be part of every moment, moment by moment. And when I heard you say that for the first time, my head almost exploded. So the question becomes then, this person who is in the fMRI and that all the red lights are just flashing and everything, how does that person turn the red light off?
Oh, that comes a little later. That comes a little later, and it's easy to do.
Mm.
That's the good news. Before we get to that, this concept of know who you are, moment by moment, means, what it really means is you need to get out of those bad brain regions. Just get out of them. You don't want to be there. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help your health, not going to help your productivity. It's not going to help your family and friends and the community. It's just not going to help. So get out and go off and stay in the good parts, the prefrontal cortex, the creative center, the positive relationship center, the pleasure center, anything. Just get out of those. And that's the real purpose. And how you do it, we're going to talk about that. Steve, first, we need to apply this. Let's apply it to these 3 things we were talking about: productivity, innovation, and sales, increased sales.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds
Should we go
good.
ahead then? All right. Let's apply this. Let's talk about increased productivity to workplace. How do you do that? Well, let's take a simple thing: decisions. Making decisions. You have to make a decision. If a decision is needed, make it. Make it immediately. Don't wait. Don't wait for more information. Just make the decision. And if it's the wrong one, well, that's fine. The company can go forward because you can fix the problem and you'll fix it quickly. If it's the right one, hey, you're going forward. But no decision, just waiting and not making a decision, the company's going nowhere. Nothing is happening. And the reason people can't make a decision is because they're using cingulate thinking. They're thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about the company. They're not thinking about the project. Thinking about themselves. Oh, I'll be embarrassed if I make the wrong decision. People think I'm stupid or something. Just this self kind of cingulate thinking. Stop. Don't do that. That's a simple one. There's decision. And then responsibility. Responsibility is the same kind of thing. You need to be responsible not only for your own actions, but at work. If you have people underneath, you have to be responsible for their actions. If they make a mistake or or do something wrong, it's not their fault. Do not blame them. It's your responsibility. You didn't teach them well enough. You didn't give them clear enough directions. And the same up on top. Somebody yells at you because you didn't do something right. Don't blame them. You didn't do something right. You didn't give them enough information or something. Singular thinking. If you blame others, that's singular thinking.
Can we talk about the
Get out.
concept of blame for a second? Because I mean, I absolutely accept that it's cingulate thinking, but how you get to blame is really interesting, isn't it? Because you have to be thinking about yourself, but it happens so automatically sometimes that you don't realize that it's happening. So how do you, when you're in the process of forming blame, how do you stop that from happening?
Very good. Very good. This gets back then to this concept of know who you are moment by moment. In order to know who you are, you need to know what brain region you're in, right? So when you're blaming somebody for something, you're thinking about yourself. When you're thinking about yourself, you're not in any other brain region, only one at a time. It's very important to know that you're only one at a time. You can't be in two or three. And so when you blaming someone, you're just thinking about yourself for some reason or another, because and and that's again the concept of you have to know that.
Okay, all right. So you have to realize that when you're blaming someone, you're in the cingulate and
Yes,
you're doing some kind of thing in there. And it's interesting because the cingulate is a part of the brain that has it has no communication with another part of the brain, does it? I mean, it's
it,
kind of all by itself.
that's exactly it. That's it. You can only be in one
You can
at a
only be in
time.
one. So if you're cut off from another part of the brain, it means that if there's no communication going
Right.
on, right, then that
Yes,
part of the brain never acquaints itself with the idea that it can know itself.
that's
In other
correct.
words, when you're in a pattern can't break out of itself because it's a pattern.
That's right.
So what you're proposing is that when I'm in the cingulate and I'm blaming someone,
Right.
then another part of me has to recognize that.
That is correct. That is correct. Yes, that is. That is.
And it's the part that doesn't want to have anything to do with the
Yeah,
cingulate.
that's for sure. The
Okay.
singular, each one of these parts of the brain wants to be in charge 100% of the time. I'll tell you that.
Do you have
No
a
part of
favorite
the
part that you like to be in charge?
and that's why you got to hang out in that creative brain center, the prefrontal lobe. They all want to be in charge. Just hang out in those good ones.
Okay.
So
Okay.
then we've got this business of responsibility. People don't want to do that, and the reason is because themselves they want to blame somebody. Right? It's singular thinking. They want to blame somebody else. It's not me. Well, that's again eliminate that, and you're going to increase productivity. The third one is commitment. Old-fashioned commitment. This is a real issue with productivity. Somebody at work says, "Oh, sure, I'll do that project." Why did they say yes? Often they say yes because a friend asked them, or their boss asked them, or something of this sort. They just said it because they don't want to. They want to feel friendly or something of that sort. Singular thinking. They
Mhm.
have to realize what is being asked, and if they can do it, fine. If they have the skills, if they don't feel like doing it, don't do it. Just say no, because the worst thing for productivity and for co-workers is to have somebody, oh sure, I'll do that project, or I'll run that errand, or I'll take that over there, and they don't do it. I mean, and that so commitment is so key to productivity, and again, people can't commit themselves. They need to learn the discipline of saying no, and they need to learn that because often they say yes because of a singular thinking and not because of the skills involved and so forth.
So is it your experience that if somebody can get out of cingulate thinking, then making a commitment is not this like very arduous sort of thing, but it happens more naturally?
Naturally, yeah. Either you do or you say yes or no. I mean, no's are fine. It's just
Okay. All
if it's a
right.
yes, do it. No matter what.
Okay.
And then let's see. There's some other ones. Before responsibility, commitment, this business of making a decision. All of the issues with these is because of cingulate thinking, and
Hmm.
eliminate that, and you're going to really increase productivity. Another one is old-fashioned positive communication. Positive communication is simply when you interact with somebody at work, sales clerk, anywhere, family, it needs to be the other person feels good after the conversation and you feel good. That's what positive communication is about.
Mm.
And not destructive communication, not one-up communication. And then and it's because of cingulate thinking. If you
But we
start
love our
again,
drama.
what the drama, the drama, it's all about me when I'm
Right.
talking to somebody, and it's not. It's
Yeah.
not. It's about the other person, and so this is another thing about increased productivity at workplace. The last one is trust. There's a lot of lack of trust in the workplace, and if you can increase trust, you're going to increase productivity through the roof. And the reason no one trusts anybody is because they're thinking about themselves. And if they can think of the company or the project or their coworkers, rather than themselves, then there's going to be trust among each other, and they're going to go forward. And again, it's singular thinking. You can't trust somebody if they're only thinking about themselves.
Right.
You
Fear,
just can't.
self-protection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're going to make decisions. They're going to do things for themselves and not for you or the company. And so there you go with all those things: responsibility, decision making, trust, all of those. If you can improve those, productivity it will double. I mean, it's the statistics actually are available to show that, and
Mm.
it's all from singular thinking. So
So
that's
what
that's
so,
the
so
increased
what you're
productivity.
describing, these problems that happen with trust and responsibility and commitment and decision making, um, are all because of singular thinking, but the good parts of those aspects come from, a better part of the creative part
A
of the brain,
better
right?
part of the
So that's
brain.
why if we want to hang out in that part of the brain.
That's exactly it.
Okay, got it.
Now we got this. This is a really interesting one. Innovation,
Hmm.
creativity. You got to be innovative in your company. I mean, they're going to go down in hours nowadays with the speed of things. You've got to be innovative and creative.
Yeah.
Now, you know who you are moment by moment knows what part of the brain you're in. For creativity, you want to take the prefrontal cortex offline. You don't want to have it online. You want to go to your creative center only. Prefrontal cortex is phenomenal. It's judgment. It's decision making. It's decisions for us and for our friends and for the community, but not for innovation because it'll stop it. For example, you have to come up with 25 tags. They call them taglines. Maybe you're working for a marketing company. Come up with 25 taglines. If you start throwing in that prefrontal cortex, you'll get one. Oh, that doesn't sound right. And then you put another one down. That might offend somebody. You put another one. You'll never get there
Yeah.
because often the 24th or the 25th is the best one. And so turn off the prefrontal cortex. Stay in your creative center. And that's an interesting component of the innovation.
Well, I mean, the internal critic is the thing that really shuts everybody down, isn't it?
Yes,
Because nobody wants to look foolish,
that's right.
and everybody's a critic anyway, no
Right.
matter what you do.
We're hardwired.
We're hardwired for it,
Yeah.
and we're hard on ourselves, and we're hard
Yes.
on other people. with this criticism. And so do you have any tips for staying in the creative brain?
Well, know it. Just know that's what you need to do is really the biggest tip, because when you sit down to come up with ideas, maybe you, as I say, maybe the taglines or maybe a company name or product name, or the quarterly report takes 3 weeks to put together. Why can't I ought to be able to figure out something to make it in 2 hours? When you think in that process, when you're doing that process of thinking those names, or thinking how can I this process, it just literally don't start judging it. Don't judge it. Just do it. Just let the mind flow. And this has been known for years. They just didn't know the mechanism. They didn't realize, oh well, that's don't go to your creative
All
stay in your
right.
creative center. And that's probably the best tip is when you're in this mode, stay in it, stay with it, don't judge, no judge.
How long do you think we can stay in it at one time? Or
Oh,
should we?
that's variable. It
Mm-hmm.
depends on what the job is, but you're right. You can't stay in there for very long. Oh no, you can't. You got to get up and move around to do something.
Mm-hmm.
But you certainly can for a few minutes or an hour or two.
Okay. All
So
right.
that's an interesting one for innovation. We're kind of doing the opposite. We're actually
But you know what? It
trying to
does
turn
kind of
one off.
explain. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but it does kind of explain what happens when somebody's is an innovative point. I mean, they're in their creative mind and they're just going along, and then after a while, and they get a little tired, they start critiquing themselves,
Yes, they do.
and
Yes,
they go, "Oh, I'm just going to throw that whole thing out," and they've
that's right.
slipped into the
That's right.
prefrontal cortex.
That's what they do. When you do that, you're going up into your judgment center, which is really good. It's a good place because it makes wonderful decisions.
But
It
not at
makes,
that moment.
but not then. so,
Okay.
so that's an interesting sort of approach to this
I'm sorry, I
problem.
didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh no, it's great. Know who you are. So sales. How about improving sales?
How about it?
And we're going to do it again. We're going to go to these brain regions. When you first are trying to pitch somebody, maybe you're trying to get a couple $1 million for your company. Maybe you're trying to sell an automobile. Just sell a product or a service. And you've seen the person comes in for the first time. You've never seen that person's never seen you. You want to use your croc brain. This is when you want to use your crocodile brain, or at least think in terms of a croc brain, because when you first meet somebody, they don't know who you are. You don't know who they are, and it's like you don't want to scare that person. It's like a crocodile. You don't want to scare that person. You want to say pleasant things, good things, and then as you they become more comfortable, then the other thing you want to do for a croc is to is to give them a reward, and the reward is going to be your particular product or your service. But you can't go in there with, oh, it's great to see you. I got this phenomenal product. It's got all these benefits. That's going to scare them. They don't hear anything after that. The croc brain, because they're on their croc brain, they are not on the prefrontal cortex. They are absolutely not. We all are. We're the same way when we go to make a purchase or something.
So you're
And so
saying that when you're in a sales situation
right.
and you're selling someone, that you should be in your croc brain?
That's exactly it. You should think in terms of the other person being in their croc brain.
Oh, think of them as being in their
Yes.
croc brain.
Yes. Yes.
But
Yes.
what brain am I in if I'm the
Oh,
salesperson?
you're in your high performance part. I mean, you're peaked out at your high performance. You're in your frontal cortex. You're in your creative force. You're really up in that
Oh, so
creative.
I'm crossing the midline then. I'm in my creative and my prefrontal cortex at the same time?
No. I meant to say you're in when you're meeting, you're flipping back and forth. You can flip back and
Oh, you're
forth in
flipping back.
seconds.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
in
Okay.
seconds, you can
Mhm.
flip back and forth. That's what I say, moment by moment. because you can be in there for milliseconds.
Right.
And then you flip back and forth. But I'm saying you're not in your croc brain. Oh no, no, no. But the
But
other
assume
person
that the other person is.
is. Yes, they absolutely are. And we
Okay.
would be if we're at the other end.
Okay. Fair enough.
And in order to do to this is actually it's a Oren Klaff, Claff. He's a VC guy who's raised billions of dollars for companies, for airports. And he uses this term. This is how he starts his pitch. He actually uses this word croc brain, and it's very effective. And then now that I'm thinking about this sort of philosophy I put together, it makes sense. And so that's an interesting kind of angle on sales.
It is. Do you have any other tips for working with somebody who is in their croc brain? Like, can you get them out of their croc brain, or just want to keep them there?
Oh no, no, no. The whole purpose is to get them out. Oh
Oh,
no,
I
you
see.
want them up. You want them in that decision-making process so they'll buy your product.
You want to
But
move
the
them from the
first thing you
croc
do
brain to
is
the prefrontal cortex.
well, you want them in the prefrontal cortex, yes. But you don't want to scare them. And that's the
Sure.
main thing. It's like a croc, you don't want to scare them because
Because
they
they'll
own your
bite your arm off.
instincts.
Yeah.
Don't want to scare them because if you scare somebody, they're never going to get to their prefrontal. They're just going to, I don't want to hear this, no matter how good it is or how great it is. And then so you get past the scaring part, relax a little bit, and then you give the reward and gently give the reward. And like a croc, they're looking for food, and you give it to them in a way that makes them it's pleasing to them to get that
Hmm.
reward.
Hmm.
And then the third thing you can do, you can actually say, if you don't do this, then you won't get the reward. And so now you're starting to think, oh, they're out of their croc brain. They're starting to think up here in the prefrontal cortex.
Oh, I see. Okay. Because the prefrontal cortex is weighing risk and reward.
Yes, now it is. Now
Mm.
it's calmed down. So
Mm.
it's okay. I'm not going to get nobody's going to hurt me.
So you've
And
helped them transfer themselves out of their croc brain to their prefrontal cortex
exactly.
by using reward
Well,
and
you start not by not scaring them, right?
by not. Okay. Yeah.
You
But
got to
those.
start by not scaring them, and
Mhm.
then the second is this reward, this concept of reward. Now you're getting to the accumbens. Hey, the accumbens is the pleasure center, and that's run by dopamine. It turns out, but
Mm.
that's the concept.
Okay. Oh, okay. So it's not the prefrontal cortex as much as it is the accumbens.
Oh no, that's the pleasure center. I mean, it's nice to get there if you can,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
the ultimate is the prefrontal cortex because that's the decision making and to buy the product.
Of course. Duh. Yeah. Right. So you've taken these concepts, and I understand you have a new book coming out where you've put a lot of this together in terms of a coherent philosophy.
Yes, that's going to be the new book. It's not out yet. It will be a
Mhm.
while, but that does to complete the story.
Mm,
It's very important to complete this story, and to
right.
complete the story is that you have the prefrontal cortex, the creative center, the accumbens, take the prefrontal cortex. Very, very powerful, but it's very, very sensitive. The amygdala, the amygdala can run, that's that anchor center, and the run on no sleep. It requires no sleep. It doesn't even want sleep. That's the amygdala. It's instinct. Foods, junk food. Junk food is better than anything for for the amygdala and the cingulate and exercise. Oh, it scares them away and
Mm,
meditation and all of these things, but not the prefrontal cortex. That requires 8 hours of sleep. It really requires 8. If you don't give that prefrontal cortex 8 hours, it's not going to function. The amygdala is going to take over, and that's why people without any sleep, they're cranky. they're grumpy, they're irritable, they're quick to temper, and sometimes they're even mean just because they don't get enough sleep. So that prefrontal cortex, 8 hours, because you have to charge up that adenosine energy. It's called the adenosine chemical, but it's a brain energy. It dwindles down during the day and goes back up after 8 hours. Exercise, you need 1 hour of exercise for that prefrontal cortex every day. Mix it up. Maybe a run, maybe swim, maybe a class, anything. But you need the exercise for the prefrontal lobe and these others, the creative center, and nutrition. Nutrition is phenomenal. You have to have healthy nutrition. My formula is eat the right foods at the right time, prepared in a healthy manner, and that will take care of it. And just before you get the right foods, no added sugar, no added salt, and no processed omega-6 fats. Those three things added.
Well,
If
there
you can
goes my
get by
diet.
there. So that's what this book is that I have now. It's called Alive with Life, and it's got 15 elements. And if you can max out those 15 elements, that'll keep those phenomenal brain centers
So
going at high
where can
performance.
people, what's the book called and where can people find it?
The book is called Alive with Life. It's a medical doctor's guide to live your best life. And it's on Amazon, and it's on my site at GaryEpler.com.
Okay. Well, it sounds wonderful. Um, you know, I feel like we could talk for hours, but I have to just kind of respect the time here. And maybe we can talk another time about
Sure,
some of this stuff in a little bit more, a
definitely.
little deeper way. But I want to thank you so much for spending some time with us. And and I hope that everybody takes your words to heart. This is coming from Harvard Medical School medical professor. He knows what he's talking about. He's taken this all over the world and healed diseases and discovered diseases and done all this kind of wonderful stuff. And this doesn't just happen out of thin air. You know, I think people think that some people are just, you know, so gifted that they don't have to work at it, and probably not true, huh?
Oh, it's lots and lots of work, but it's been worth every second
Yeah.
and years, but it's been worth it. And Steve, it's so fantastic. You know what I'm saying, and you understand what I'm saying, and you're spreading the word, and you're going to use this, and it's just really exciting to hear.
I'm going to use it, and I hope everyone who is listening and watching today is going to use it as well. Again, thank you so much for showing up and really showing up in your best self, which is what I try to teach people to do anyway. And so we'll catch you on the flip side.
All right, sounds good.